Hey, welcome back to Deconstructing Damsels with Jessica Hannan. I keep forgetting to tell you who I am. And this week we do Say No to the Duke by Eloisa James, who is a comfort read for me. And I'm covering it with Lisa Kuchy from Ladies of Leisure podcast. I think this is her first time actually being on an episode, and it's the first time we've had an episode guest. I say we as if this is a royal we. It's my podcast. But anyway. And we also have a little addendum at the end where we talk about a special event that happened on March 7th for me and resident guest Sven. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and we'll see you on the flip side. It's good because now you know where I'm coming from when I read when I get confused, because I'm just I'm an American living in German, but I'm trying to read about Renaissance England.
It takes a very deep mind to keep that all in the same brain.
Well, I was actually going to say, because with you, I was actually listening, like I said, to The Sacrifice, and you were talking about the trashy romance novel, and I was wondering if it was this one.
So it might have been this one because it took me about a month. But I'm one of those people that I'm reading 5 books at one time. So it's 2 nonfiction where I think I'm going to learn. And then there's one trashy, and then there's one super trashy, 50 Shades of Alice, which is super trashy. Or if you've ever wanted to know how mermaids and angels have sex, I got that book. Joey Hill, she's amazing. Or a vampire threesome. So this one is my middle of the road. I could be in a room and be reading it, and people wouldn't judge me too harshly.
Well, see, that's good, because I was going to say, I told you about the geriatric cult a while ago. You totally have to. You have to join them, because heaving business, because that cult, all they do is talk about trashy books all day long, and they're so happy.
Yeah, and amongst workers, I'm the smut purveyor. That's how I
You should be.
Myself. Yeah.
See, and you're enjoying the smut, and I enjoy the character arc, so it's perfect.
I did enjoy this book because the character was very enjoyable. Here's what I didn't understand or didn't like about this book.
Yeah,
I had to wait the whole book for a sex scene.
I know.
Is she always like that?
It's kind of like a low heat. She's kind of like a low heat author, because James is one of my comfort reads when I go into that space where I need that, which is why I actually read this book originally. And so, yeah, she's kind of like a low key, but what I like is I kind of like the way she builds it up, like Benedict and Beatrice and Much Ado About Nothing, how she builds up that banter that especially you and I grew up with in the 80s and 90s on TV, that build up is necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were a couple times in this book where I was like, oh, now we're going to get it on. They're making steamy eyes at each other. Here it comes. And then Lord Jeremy leaves the room, and I was like, what just happened? All right. I guess we'll get back to that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like that too, because it seems I haven't read the rest of the series because I got this one on sale, but I have a feeling she's probably like that with all these people with all the wilds.
And I would say, how do you pronounce her name, her actual name? Because she goes by Betty, Bia, and a
Boudica?
couple.
I always just say Boudica.
Boudica.
Think
okay.
That's how I say it. It's probably wrong because I don't speak Iceni, so I don't know.
I saw it and I was like, Boadicea, and I know that's not how you pronounce it because my pronunciation is terrible. So that's why I wanted you to say it first. Okay.
Oh, you know what we should do? I should have probably asked Stephanie Burgess. Have you ever read her?
Yes.
So in her world, her Boudica world. That's why that's probably mispronouncing it. Yeah. But she's so good. Yeah.
But so we might have spoilers in this. Spoiler, you don't get back till the very end.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a given that you're going to get spoilers on my podcast.
So I did like that it started off with her, I'll call her Betty because it's easier to say. Yeah. Betty going off to charm school or their version of school and running into a bully.
Clementine. Yes. Clementine. I have notes on Clementine.
Oh, good. Let's hear them.
Okay. So the Clementine thing was, I put it so Clementine is this woman who's
perfect for like she wants to get married to the highest person. She refuses to be lowered in her stature. She's like every mean girl ever. Like she would make the girls at like Chilton and like Gilmore Girls look like nothing, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she brought up the fact that Betty might have a questionable history, and Betty didn't even know about it.
Right? And she was just like, I don't like I know my mama was a little bit of a
Hussy.
yeah, right? And so she was like, I know my mama was like that, but why are you being like this? And then like like the fact that well, I don't like the fact I like she stood up to her, but I like Clementine says Clementine turned towards her. I'm merely repeating what scientists have proved, Octavia. Strong attributes are always inherited, just as when racehorses are bred for speed. You could call it destiny, but it's science. It's really science. And I was like, woof, that sounds like eugenics in a way.
Oh, I know. I was like, oh, I could see why the Victorians took the turns that they did in their scientific method.
Yeah. I'm like, woof. Like that was just like eugenics. And I was just like, no
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah, Clementine, you're harsh with your science.
It's okay. She got her comeuppance though at the end, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was Betty's way of setting out to get the highest bidder in the book, because that's basically
Hmm.
what it is. Like she wants the high horse, but
Exactly.
and she had like 14 proposals in her first
And
season.
then yeah, and then like, there was like more than that. Like there was like ones that were thinking about like proposing or whatever.
I have a question about you, how you feel about when the female character is so likable and perfect that it's annoying.
I get annoyed by that. Like I don't want someone that's going to be perfect. I like someone with flaws and a little bit of bite, and someone that's like a pain in the ass sometimes.
So the romance novel I read before this, which may have been the one I mentioned on my podcast now that I'm thinking about it, it is someone who's so beautiful that she has to be mean because her beauty just ruins everyone's life. And I was like, I cannot relate to you in any way, shape, or form. Who is reading this book thinking, oh yeah, yeah, like this is my jam.
That's like who is it? It's like Stassi Schroeder on Vanderpump Rules, which is the Bravo show. It's like she's very
Mhm.
much like that. You know that like
Yeah.
me. There's been a couple of them that I'm just like not even there for.
Whereas Betty, I felt like was reasonable. Like, yes, of course she's beautiful. 14 dudes have proposed to her, and she's still riding high, and she finally gets a duke to do it.
Hmm.
She's a little bit more. They, I don't want to say they added enough substance to her to make me like, oh, I would sit down and have some tea with Betty. She seems cool.
Right, because she does like she knows she's beautiful. She plays it up when it's appropriate, but otherwise she just doesn't care. Like I mean, she goes and does the beer. She takes care of like the beer hopping stuff too. Like I mean, she has no problem going out and getting dirty and being that person. Like she's well rounded in that way.
And that's what she
Unlike
wanted to do.
Clementine.
Yeah, she wanted to go and have a day of fun by going to the auction house.
Yes, I was so excited about that too. That was such a good. That was like a really good scene. And I knew that she and Thaddeus weren't going to work there, but her with Thaddeus's mom was like everything to
Oh,
me.
I love that. So, yeah, the lead up to that was you got a Duke, you got Lord Jeremy. Lord Jeremy's thinks he has PTSD and also might be a little crazy, but he's not sure. And he's but friend of the family, also a
Yeah.
marquis. So he tries to
Yeah.
sell himself short, and he's like, "Oh, she wouldn't want me." I was like, "You're a marquis, really?" Like, all right,
Right?
bye. But when
Okay, you
Thaddeus
have
was like, "You want to wear some pants," and his mom was all for it, I was like, "Oh, Thaddeus isn't a mama's boy." Mm-mm,
uh
mm-mm.
he's way too prim and proper. Like, because I actually wrote a note about that. Because again, it's me. I have notes about
Yeah,
everything. But like, there was one. She was like, she's talking about it, and she's like, Betsy cleared her throat. I assure you that I am far from perfect. I necessarily strive for perfection due to my rank and responsibilities, Sadia said. Yet when I fail to achieve my own standards, as any man must, I am reassured by the fact that on excellent reputation can defeat gossip. Your reputation is impeccable. Betsy nodded her thanks, conscious of a gloomy feeling. Small moral faults are allowable under a guise of rectitude, Thaddeus added, digging himself deeper. It could be that thick eyelashes were not enough to counterbalance such deeply felt righteousness.
I did like the use of rectitude and eyelashes.
I did too. And I like the righteousness because it was like you could just add the self in front and you know exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, and he was kind of a stick in the mud, but it came in helpful when he was the Duke in the room that would stand up to bullying.
Yes, like that one lady at the dinner or the breakfast rather. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I do love the scene where her so there's three sisters that are of questionable reputation
Lineage.
because of mom, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously we would be best friends with them.
Right.
Um,
Obviously, because they're the fun
but
ones.
Victoria was the one that hated people and being around people. I guess
Mm.
hating people is not the right term. Anxiety.
Yeah, she has really bad social anxiety. Like it makes her sick and nauseous, and she can't handle it. Yeah.
Yeah, she will vomit. And then like there was a nasty woman who happened to want to do Lord Jeremy and
Mm-hmm.
didn't get to. And so she started trashing Victoria at the breakfast table within her hearing.
Yeah.
And basically Thaddeus just stood up and was like, not okay.
Yeah, and he was
Oh,
just like, not allowable. Sorry.
but it wasn't just that she was trashing Victoria, wasn't it? The ladies started talking about Lord Jeremy. That's what it was. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
And that's
super.
when Betsy was going to stand up. Remember, that was when Betsy was like, woof. First you're
Yes,
going after family, now you're going by a friend of the family. Woof. Nope.
yes. Because they questioned, she questioned, was he crazy, right? Or no,
Yeah.
no, he let his platoon die, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, which was like a whole theme in and of itself.
Which is a PTSD that he was talking about, which I was glad to see that PTSD was actually dealt with too. Like
Yeah,
you saw the highs and the lows.
yeah, I like that they introduced PTSD, the social anxiety, although the throwing up social anxiety was, I was like, oh, we're really gonna throw up here. Okay, all right.
Yeah. But I
Um,
guess it would make sense in the setting if she was really kind of like away from society for the most part.
yeah,
And that's a lot of people to be around, a lot of titles that you have to act perfect around. That's a lot of anxiety. I can
yeah,
see that.
yeah. I did like that they brought in those personality traits that you don't often see addressed.
Yeah, and especially like in Regencies, like you don't really see that for the most part. Like Eloisa James has another series. It's fairy tales that have been made over. And one of them is
Oh,
called When Beauty Meets the Beast, or When
oh my
Beast Meets
gosh, that
Beauties or
sounds like my
something.
jam.
Yeah, and it's like, and the Doctor is a lot like House. Like you can definitely see the influence of House, but like
Okay.
he's very clearly got like a physical issue, and he's got like mental issues from like being already who he is. But you can definitely tell that like the impact of having his gait and everything kind of change and stuff. You can definitely tell with him. Like so, I will say that James is fairly good about noticing things like that. And I read that book, God, in 2013, 12, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Oh, I love fairy tale remakes. I was just looking at Pinterest last night with all the different young adults, fancy ladies on the covers where they show the different fairy tale remakes. I was like, oh, and Beauty and the Beast is my jam.
Yeah.
As you can tell from my amazing shirt that I wore, the
I like your
stained
shirt.
glass, um, from Beauty and the Beast, the animated version, the true version.
Yeah, I just have toothpaste on mine. Sorry.
Hey, that's okay. It's 5:30 my time. Just had my first cup of coffee. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's great.
Well, I was gonna like change shirts, and I was like, it's getting to be too late to change shirts. So sleep shirt it was.
Yeah, why would you change shirts when we are going to be talking about amazing, beautiful ladies in the Regency time period? It's fine.
Exactly. I'm never gonna stand up to that. So not worried about it.
Um, I did like the amount of detail that Eloisa James put into this. So I often find myself annoyed when I start reading a series and they start referring to the other characters who clearly already had a book written about them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about with North, the older brother.
Exactly.
In this one, it made me want to go and read the other Wild books.
Right. The way she writes is just fun. You can read this book in like a couple of days, or in my case, like 3 hours because it's me. But like you can skim through it, but you still don't miss anything in the meantime. Like you can still pick up all the important details. Like you may
Yeah.
not remember what like the Hop's little like hut thing looks like, but you remember that she was in there and that they did it on that fur jacket,
Yes.
for instance.
Yes. I also liked when they went to the auction house and the ceiling had a bunch of cherubs just doing it in random
Uh-huh.
ways. And it was
Exactly.
supposed to
Because it
be
was
a
a
dudes
male house.
only. Mhm.
Uh-huh. And you're just like, hmm.
And then the person who created the art at the auction was actually sitting behind her.
Hmm.
I thought that was cool too.
Yeah, it's like there was like little eggs of different things that you could find throughout.
Yeah, there wasn't like the focus of like, because of the way the books are, it's often that there's only two main characters, the love interest and then the protagonist.
Yeah.
And I've read books where they're solely the only characters in the book. And then there's
Oh,
little detail, and you're like, well, I know where this is going. You need to make it very interesting. And if you don't with those details, you don't. But what she did was she incorporated like her aunt, her mother-in-law, the two love interests. Then there was this whole side mystery of, is the to be love interest actually crazy or not? And
hmm.
his family, and then he was estranged from his dad. So I felt like there were enough elements in this book where if it was running a little low on steam, she like threw something extra in there.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. Like that's what you felt like. Like you felt like you were part of the world without it being like. So I write more sci-fi fantasy stuff. So, but it's like so I have to world build completely different. But here you could walk into the world because of the way she put in the characters and the way she had them interact. You kind of got the feeling of her particular society, of her London society that you may not have gotten from some other writers.
See, and I write more modern day because the amount of detail that she puts in that makes it seamless for world building, where it's like, oh, this is what they wore, this is how they would dress themselves, this is the hierarchy. I was like, oh, I would have just made that up instead of researching. That's a lot of effort.
Well, I will say I started reading a book. I was going to read it for my Patreons, and it was about like German royalty or whatever. And I
Mhm.
was like, wait, hold on. Research shows you that was abolished and at the end of the First World War.
Oh,
Yeah, there isn't like they can keep the titles, but they don't have like a they don't have like a royal family or anything. But like this one
yeah,
was
I was
acting
just
like it
thinking, I
was
was
like
like,
the
I don't
same
remember who
thing.
they are.
Yeah, yeah, you do. They're the British Hanovers basically.
Yeah,
They
I was
brought the
like,
Brits over.
did they
Yeah,
come
like
back?
yeah, no, like yeah, it's like they didn't come back, and I was just like, and I was just reading it, and I was just like, I had to put it down, and I was just like, I cannot. It'll probably go on my Patreon as a post of like DNFs because I'm thinking about maybe not putting them in, but I feel like I should warn people sometimes.
Yeah, so I find that too when we do like words of the week on my podcast, or we do something where I try something as part of it and it fails, uh meaning I go to like an event and I'm like, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was. I don't want to trash the event because maybe my take on it is different,
Yeah.
but at the same time, so it's a fine line to say, hey, I don't want to trash this other maybe artist person or small business or something. What it's almost an exercise in how to be diplomatic about, it's not for me.
Right.
If you're like me, you may not like it.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like there's been a couple of books that I absolutely loathe that I have not put on here. When I started the podcast, actually, the first like two or three books that I was reviewing, I was like, oh my God, these are awful. I was like, I can't start them off hating them because that just sets the wrong tone. And I'm like, but how do you introduce a book that doesn't necessarily work for you? Because it's kind of like this. I think it's kind of like leftover from the RWA feeling almost of you can't be mean, but
Yeah.
but you should still be able to be critical about something not working for you and why.
And it's hard to figure out if people are open to feedback. Like in my job, I get feedback all the time. That's like, just so you know, your flow chart looks like fart clouds. And I'm like, oh, they do look like fart clouds. Thank you for that. But I find that sometimes I'll say something about someone's resume. I'm like, when I read it, I forgot who you were at the top, blah, blah, blah. And people don't, it's almost like it's part of them. I was like, no, no, not critical to you. This is a piece of paper that
Yeah,
has words on it. And that,
exactly.
but you know how much that person probably spent on their novel, and yet you want to be like, could you not use the word desert and dessert interchangeably because it's driving me crazy in between your sex scenes.
Exactly. Like, are you having sex in the desert with dessert? Or are you having
Yeah.
dessert and with the desert? Like,
And I find that I don't rate the 1-star books that I read, especially on BookBub. I sign up for BookBub where you get the emails every day of like the
yeah,
free or $1 books.
yeah.
And I've read maybe 1 out of 20 that are like, whoa, that was a great book. Other ones I'm like, whoa, you were free. And
And I know
that's
why.
that's the best part of it.
I did not have to put any money into this. Yeah, I
Right.
know. Yeah, I mean, like that's where I get like half the books on this podcast have been free or like the $1.99 sales or whatever because I don't have like $16 to spend on an ebook. So I want to make sure like the next one that I read that we're going to read is like how not to marry a girl or the
Oh,
girl not to marry, whatever. And so I was like, this is a $10 purchase, but it was a purchase I made, and that was for the ebook. But I made it under the assumption that I knew I was going to A, really want to try it, and B, I love rom-coms, and C, it's how to lose a guy in 10 days setup. So I knew I wanted to do it. And so the next one will be with that one, and I have to be really careful about it. So I get it. Some of the cheap books are just
ooh, it can be rough.
like the book Ariel, the episode I did on Ariel, that was one of my free books and I'd been excited to wait for it, but I was just like,
Yeah.
this is all porn without plot, basically, and I need a little bit of plot if you're going to
I
be
just need a
making
smidge of,
nano werewolves.
yeah, it's amazing when someone can do full throttle porn and have an amazing plot to it. And that's what I liked about Joey Hill. I was like, wow, you came up with this whole like angels are dudes and there's like the end of the world happening and because of the sea witch, like there was a lot going on and a lot of sex.
Which is good. That's what you want. You want to have the
Right.
both. Like you want to enjoy it, right? Like I get it.
I also find that when a really popular book comes out, like 50 Shades of Grey, even though I did mention 50 Shades of Alice, if I see on like BookBub, the billionaire night or something, I was like, oh, is this going to be like a loser knockoff of what was already like done?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll stay away from those two.
Same.
It's got to be creative.
I don't like billionaire books anyway because I
Yeah.
feel like you're taking away all the internal and external conflict for the most part
Yeah.
because they're billionaires. What are you going to do? Like you can just move.
Yeah.
You could move to the moon and no one would notice, you know?
Also, I would buy into it more if they had the billionaire idiosyncrasies. Like, this guy was so sexy. And then he showed me his jar full of toenails that he keeps in the corner. But none of them have that.
Right?
And I'm like,
Or
oh,
like
this got real.
yeah, exactly. Or like have them be like kind of a dickhole to their staff and be like, you don't want to be an alpha hole, but they can be a dickhole and be like, no, you need to change that. Like this is not okay, and have him change and understand what's going on. Because like we read a billionaire book, the first Christmas book we read, and
That's
Sven
the
and I
one
were
you
on
and
it.
Sven needed.
Yes. He was a billionaire. Yes, that was the one we absolutely like. We were trying so hard to find a book we liked. And I was picking them because they were free because I had to be able to be from Germany and America, and like German Amazon does not always have the same thing that American Amazon has for the same price or free. So we were having to find something, and so we found it, and we were just like, oh my god.
So I also have to say that clears up a lot of like the podcast episodes I listen to
Yeah.
with you on why it's like the bear and the woman. And I was like, well, I am fascinated like by their friends who were like, hey, I think you should read this. I was
Yeah,
like, this seems like a good group where they're
it
like, listen,
did.
I got crazy for you.
Well, like she D&D's with him. Like so last night they were D&Ding. That's why I was up so late too, because they were D&Ding. So, you know, she's got a were hyena right now in their D&D group.
Oh, nice.
And he plays a giant turtle.
To take a another different turn on your podcast, I find that D&D is the great equalizer of people. I've had 3 friends just do it recently that are from like completely different walks of life, and it has like changed their life for the better.
See, like I can't get into it. That's the funny thing. I
So
can't sit
my
there and wait 4 hours and listen to everybody talk. I'm just like, I don't have that mind focus.
so my brother is a master Dungeons and Dragons at the comic book store in our hometown. I
Yeah.
would I know enough of it. I'm not going to be that person, but I do know that we had a group of acquaintances that were D&D people, and
Yeah.
I was like, really, all those people? Because it seems weird that they're into this for hours. Turns out it was a sex orgy, and they would D&D and then have an orgy in between. And I was like,
Wow
well, now a
then.
were hyena is going to be doing a elf.
Well, that makes sense because like so they're doing like I think the Curse of Strand or something, and it's Dice and Dolts. It's done by I'm gonna plug this. Give me a minute. It's Journus Plays, and it's enjoyable because like now like almost everybody in their party right now is either a were hyena because it's D, or they're a werewolf. So
Oh,
like the
okay.
party is all turned into werewolves basically. So I'm like, oh, so it's a lot like Underworld, but less killy with the vampires, even though they got to go against the vampire.
See, I was thinking it sounded like Anita Blake's series. I'm trying Kim Harrison. No, who was
No, no, that was
no,
Little Kate
Laurel
Hamilton.
Ham.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh,
Where like after like book 10, she starts to go super crazy and she's with the were leopards, but she's in the triumvirate with like a vampire and a werewolf, but the werewolf doesn't want to talk to her anymore. And he's
yeah.
alpha leader. I was like, there's a lot there. I can't remember who you are anymore. And she's a necromancer and a witch.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I read the first ones I ever read by her were like the first one was like Cerulin, whatever that word is, Sins, and I was just like,
What
this
is
is a
happening?
lot. I think I should go back to the beginning and try again. And then I read the first one and I went, well, this doesn't sound anything like the other.
No, no. It
It
was
went from like UF to like erotica.
yeah,
Need to be.
over the course of like 8 books. And I think there's so many more, but I stopped because I was like, this is a lot, even for me.
It was a
Usually I'm
lot of like,
weird.
how do you plot these sex cult things down?
Yeah, you're like, let me one up myself again.
Like 4 times in the same book, and you're just like, you're supposed to be going after somebody too, right? You have a
Yeah,
plot
because it
there
felt
in the
like
corner.
there was another series I got into, and I know you don't do audiobooks,
Yeah.
but the Rachel Morgan by Kim Harrison. She is a witch in St. Louis, but they do a world building where basically 2/3 of humanity is wiped out, so all the supernatural people pop out, and they're like, "Oh, we've been here," and now they're living side by side.
Ah.
So what I liked about her is because it goes on for like 20 books too, and I made it to like book 8 before for no other reason. I just dropped off. I'd wanted to get back to it. The audiobooks are really great, except for one because they got someone who I don't know, she must have been on leave and she didn't do the voices right. I was like, there's pixies, there's elves, there's a sexy vampire that kind of likes her a little bit, but she's her partner. What they did well was she didn't suddenly do everyone.
Yeah. There
She would
was a
be like,
level.
oh, I'm into a vampire now. And then when they broke up, that she like waited a little bit, and then she's like, "Oh, I now found this steady person. Oh, that person's gone. Okay, let me go through a traditional breakup phase." I was like, "Oh, yes, because you don't have to do all of the paranormals in all of your universe
At the same time.
at the same time." Yeah, that's true. At the same time,
Because, she's one woman. There's only 3 holes.
I mean, you don't have to be the porn star of your paranormal universe.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have people like that. We don't need that. It's okay.
Well, yeah, and like that was the thing I find sometimes with PNR because I love PNR. But like sometimes I find trouble finding it where it's like not more erotica, but it's been labeled as like PNR, and I'm just like, I'm a character driven like reader. I don't if the book is like half sex, I don't have any connection with it.
Yeah, I actually had to do an experiment over the summer where I read a book series 10 years after I had read it. And it was the young adult series. There's it takes 3 books before there's a fade to black sex scene. So there's like only one kiss in the first book, and it's fairies. It's the Iron Fae series. I'm trying to think. Julie Kagawa.
I think I started reading that about a decade
So
ago. Sounds familiar,
right.
yeah.
And so I loved it. And it was like a decade later, do I still love it? Or have I been reading so much stuff that now I'm like, pusha, I need it. I need it to be like raunchy. And it turns out I still loved it. I read through the series, like you said, 3 hours it takes you to read a book. I was like, that was my pace. And I was like, oh, still got it. So, and that spawned me into a young adult phase again for a couple months.
And see, and that's the thing, like when you go back, you're like, oh, that's what I want. Because like that, I remember reading that because I was reading it around the same time I was reading like, because that was like during the Shakespeare, like a lot of people were doing Shakespeare retellings and YA and stuff. So I was reading a lot of that because it kind of interlapped. And I remember reading it, I was like, oh no, I really liked that one. And then I just I dropped off of it at some point because I ran out of the library and then I kind of forgot about it. Because I read so much,
Yeah.
I run out.
Yeah. Interesting to me, especially in the romance novels. When someone describes a book, I'm like, you're going to have to give me a lot of details for me to figure out if I've actually read that, because it's just been so many. I was like, can I check my Goodreads right now? I'll let you know.
And see, and I'm bad about that because like for my Goodreads, I keep forgetting to say I read them.
Oh, me too.
Because I just move on and I'm just like.
I updated after 3 years of not looking at it. I was like, oh, maybe the people on my podcast would like to follow me on some of my books. And then I went back, I was like, well, it says I'm currently reading things from like 3-4 years ago. Okay, I should fix this.
Exactly. I finally did it with a couple of things the other day. Yeah.
Well, so do you rate books on your podcast? Do you say like this is an A+? Is that what I was hearing?
No, it was like I did that I think I did that for the last one for my bear, because my bear was like a really different. A comic is so very different for me than a regular book. But like I always say, like, would you reread it again? So like, would you reread, and would you like read more of her and figure out how her worlds work?
I like that way of rating things. That's not diplomatic. That's a strong word. It's very open to interpretation. Yeah, I would definitely read this more. And I think we both said we would read more of the Wilds. Yeah, super good.
There's some fun family. Very Tessa Dare-like, I think.
And I will say, when we finally did get to the sex scene, it was worth it.
Because it was her consent. Like,
so
it was her decision.
I did have to look. I was like, when was this book written? Because they went way out of their way, I felt like, to make sure that it was like consent.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if that's like a new thing. I'm looking up when it was written. 2019. That makes sense now.
Yeah. She's definitely like, I think James has evolved from that. But yeah, again, she's following the same kind of line. Because again, we were talking about RWA. And before the show, we were talking about RWA. And I'm gonna say that like Eloisa James has been very cognizant of things, and I think, and she's been speaking up a bit more. And you can definitely tell it when you read her writing where she falls on the RWA side of things.
Got it. Okay. Because while I was reading this book, I was reading that other book that was from 80s time frame, and there was no consent going on. There was a lot of like rudeness happening. And
Joanna Lindsay?
Yeah. And here's the thing. I love Johanna Lindsay's Prisoner of My Desire. I got to be in the right mood for it, because it is a little bit on the rapey side. But it took me completely out. I didn't like the female character. I didn't like the male character. And my friend had recommended the book to me. And I went back to her. I was like, have you read this recently? She's like, oh, I've read it 15 times. It's amazing. It's one of my favorites. And I pointed out the problems I was having with it. She's like, oh yeah, it's like that. And I wonder if I go back and read Prisoner of My Desire, which started me off romance. So it may be, or started me on romance, is what I should have said. I wonder if I'll have the same feeling on it. Or is there still that nostalgic of, this is my first one?
Yeah, I think I can understand that, because like when I was younger, I started reading romance when I was like 13 or 14, because I bolted out of the Sweet Valley High stage and I ran from the Anne Rice stage, so I went to the romance because I was like, what was available? It was like that or Dean Koontz, and I was like,
It's like we were the same readers growing up.
Yeah, because like most people don't understand that like I think Sweet Valley High is actually kind of a gateway to romance in many ways because of
It is.
like
Oh,
Jessica
yeah.
Wakefield alone, all of
Yeah,
her
Jessica, you're
romances.
such
Like
a sleazy mud turtle.
I know, but I was like, but she's my favorite.
Well,
Well,
yeah, no,
Her and Lila kind of compete for my favorite.
yeah, no, nobody wants to be friends with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is like the Hermione Granger. Like, I need her for homework time. That's about it.
Right. And then like they made those books like those super editions where they like threw in like, oh no, she was actually cheating on Todd, whatever. I was like, yeah, no, we read the first one. We know she wasn't doing that. We read the Ghost Writers first like 10 books. We know that's not what was happening.
Right.
But I will say, like, to consent, I will say the best Sweet Valley High book I ever read, and it's still in my head, is the Don't Go Home with John book. Did you ever read that one?
No, what is that one?
That's the one where Lila was sexually assaulted or attempted it by her date John Pepper. I can't remember how to say his name. But he did that, so she went to that downward spiral, and then eventually, either that book or the next book, she had a party and she like just completely dunked on him and made him a pariah in the school after more people were coming out saying, hey, no, he did this to me, blah blah blah. And it was like it's definitely a 90s book. I think it
Yes.
was like it was actually in the 90s, so it had to be in the 90s book. But like it was just I thought it was a great kind of like um early social commentary on it's okay to be depressed afterwards, and it's okay to however you're feeling is okay. And like
Yeah, that's
Jessica was like ready to like go kill him. Jessica and Elizabeth were kind of like on opposite sides, I think, during that. I don't think Elizabeth believed her. I think that's how that one worked.
yeah, that's
But
interesting because I can't think of I mean, there weren't too many in the Babysitter Club books. There weren't too many relationships that really
yeah,
ballooned, except for like Logan and Marianne and
yeah,
Logan. I mean, unless he's like a closet weirdo, he wasn't going to be doing anything weird.
it's
But
very
there,
sanitized. Yeah.
yeah, and there you couldn't have any commentary like that. They tackled a few things, but like not and that would never have come up in theirs.
That
And
was
then
a very like
Anne Rice is just let's all do the vampires.
I didn't even read the vampire one. So I read the witches one. The first one I ever read was Lasher. Yeah, that was the
Oh,
first one I ever read.
now did you ever do
No,
the
The Witching Hour was first. Yeah,
I did like the witches. Did you ever read the Sleeping Beauty series she did?
I tried. I bought it when I was like a teen because Borders had it, or early 20s because Borders had it on sale, and it was out. It was outside for sale, by the way. So I had no idea what I was reading, and I got it, and I got to the first like 50 pages, and I was like,
Yeah, there's some pony play in there.
not my thing. And I say this as someone who used to go to the After Dark things at Dragon Con all the time. Like I learned what a Switch was at After Dark at that, and I was like, oh, that's what I do. Anyway, I wasn't really into it because I was like, this is a lot.
Yeah,
This is a
so what
lot being in cages, and my head just couldn't take out. You know that scene in Hocus Pocus where the boys are in those cages? Like
yes,
my brain just kept dropping that in there, and so that
yeah.
completely was taking me out.
Well, and I knew about it and I had vaguely remembered reading it when I was going through my Anne Rice phase. And I reread it with our book club about a year ago. And all of us had varying ideas about it, if not, and like two of our people had never read it before. It was interesting as an adult reading it, especially when you've read so many romance novels across the different spectrums, to
Mm-hmm.
go back and read it because it seems like Anne Rice wasn't in her prime, meaning she did a lot of the backdoor play rather than what you would consider in an actual sex scene. And it
Yeah,
was like, I don't know that you do a lot in your free time and
yeah,
yeah, it almost seemed
yeah.
like someone who was trying to write about stuff and be edgy, but had never really experienced it. It was very interesting to read it as an adult.
It sounds like it has like the 50 Shades kind of problem of
It did.
you want to be part of the group, but you don't actually aren't part of the group, or you're not like asking people that are really part of the group. You're just going off of
Yeah.
what you had a dream about one night and kind of like running with it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I assume that you also said you would read Eloisa James again. Got it.
Many
Okay.
times if
So
I read her.
Yeah, so here we go. Then we've given her mad props, and Say No to the Duke gets a will read again.
Absolutely. And I think that like I appreciate the fact that she put so much thought into her women characters, not just her lead character, but every single woman character had their own personality and they were distinct from each other. You
Yes,
don't
they were.
always get that.
Yeah, and even if they did seem like a little over the top, or you were like, oh, you're the wise aunt who's a little edgy, kind of character, it's still, you're right. They had their own personality and she customized them.
It reminded me a little bit. Have you ever read Joe Beverly?
I don't think so, but I've seen the name.
She died a couple years ago, but she has a series called the Malorian series.
Hmm.
And I thought that Betsy reminded me a lot of Elf, who was a female in a bunch of characters. Like the Wilds, they were named after weird people in like British history, and so you had like Elf, who was like Alfred and stuff like that. But she reminded me a lot of that in that world of being a character that understands herself and is not ashamed of it. Like she liked making those dirty jokes. She liked making her brothers uncomfortable, like when her and Aunt No put the tadpoles in the bed to make it look like they had come too early and stuff like that. Like, like that kind of stuff matters. I think
Yes.
it really builds the character up for me to be invested. Just like she did with Lord Jeremy, she did it with Betsy. I think a lot of really smart play in there to create a well-rounded and investable character.
Yes. And made it an enjoyable read.
Exactly. Like even the dark stuff wasn't that dark. And there was some dark stuff because that whole thing with his cousin,
Whoa. Yeah.
yeah,
His
like that,
cousin backstabbed the heck out of him.
and a whole bunch of other people had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even to the point where like at some point he ended up in a very disreputable hospital. And if anyone knows what we're talking about, it's he ended up in Bedlam. Like
Yeah.
that's hugely scary for someone, even with money. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's not the place you want to go. It'd be like going to some of the state-run hospitals in the States and like around that time frame. It was dicey at best.
Yeah. And there's only like towards the end of the book, you start to get an idea that the cousin might be a little shady. At the beginning, he's just kind of like a meh. He's not your favorite.
Right. He's like, have you read A Notorious Vow by
Yeah.
Joanna Shoup? Yeah. So he reminded me a lot of the cousin in that.
I
The
could see that.
Milton reminded me a lot of that character. Yeah. Or Gregory. Sorry, I was calling him Milton because I think Milton's the name of the other guy. But he reminds me a lot of that character.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yep.
Yeah. I would like you definitely see that they were taking the things that make people a little bit different and not standard and kind of like using them to their best ability to make it worse. And I was like, wow. But I did like the fact that Betsy knew how to hit. That
Yeah.
was a fantastic scene.
Yep.
I'm not
And
going to spoil people for what happened, but it was like amazing.
there's some silent scenes in there that are worth reading.
Oh yeah. Like you can definitely tell she takes her craft very seriously.
Hmm. Yeah.
I was like, that
Well,
was good.
well, thank you so much for having me on and letting me read a book with you. This is a joy that I never get because rarely are people reading the same books as me, except for my book club. And while I tried to make it a trashy book club,
They wouldn't do
they keep
it.
they keep sneaking real books in there. So
Rude. Who
I
wants to
know.
learn? Who doesn't want like to escape like the world the like the world that's burning around us? Like why would you not want
Right.
to
I was
escape
like,
that and go somewhere deeper?
yeah, and I don't need to have deep thoughts about like the countryside and getting away from it all. I was like, no, I need someone doing it in the countryside, getting away from it all.
Also, you and I have both been to the countryside. It's not that interesting for that long.
Not- It's not. There's a lot of
It's not
bugs out
300
there.
page. There's no 300 pages of interest because everything shuts down before like 9 o'clock anyway. So what are they going to do?
Yeah, yeah. That's
I
all
mean, even the
you're
restaurant.
gonna be
Yeah,
doing each other. Yeah.
exactly. So why are you not doing each other to start with? See, I get this. This is my brand of of reading. You should enjoy it. I've got to read some sci-fi coming up soon, but yeah, like actual sci-fi for myself, not for the podcast.
Got it.
I'm
Okay.
like, but who has time? I have all the trashy books to read instead and review.
I mean, they're much more fun.
I think so, yeah. They're
Yeah.
much more like energetic and vibrant, I think.
Yeah, when I finish a good romance novel, I walk away being like energized and ready to take on the world or find the characters in the real world or something.
Exactly. Like you want to go forth.
I want to find those
Whereas
friends.
if you read, yeah, lit fic, man, it just doesn't work for me. I was an English major that hated it. I refused to eat. I refused to read Jane Austen to the like horror of most romance fans. I hate Jane Austen. I can't stand her.
No, this is the one thing we disagree on. All right.
Yeah,
Well, there's
I'm
bound
one
to
of
be
the
something.
few.
Uh,
Yeah, I can't do Jane Austen. I tried multiple times. I read Emma, Pride and Prejudice. I tried to read like the Abby one, and I was just like,
oh, see, Abby is not my favorite. It's my friend's favorite, and I'm a Pride and Prejudice person. Up there with fairy tale retellings. If you retell Pride and Prejudice, I'm there. They're not all great. There are some terrible ones.
oh
Um,
yes,
Mr. Darcy should not be saying the F word.
no,
Weird.
no, he's much too proper for that. That'd be
Right.
like making like the king would say it before Mr. Darcy would, because that is just not proper. Even I know that.
Now, would you say that Pride and Prejudice and Zombies makes Pride and Prejudice better?
I don't know. I haven't read the zombies one.
So I'd be interested to know if you find the book, not the movie. The movie is atrocious. I've tried 3 times to salvage it in some way, and no, it's epically terrible. But I would be interested to know that. That'll be your homework until you invite me in on next time.
Okay, I like that. I like having homework. I enjoy homework. That's how I ended up with another comic I got to read for D.
Well, unfortunately, gonna have to let you go because I hear my
Yep.
kids screaming
Yep.
upstairs.
And we have to go too because it's almost lunchtime.
Okay, well, this was fantastic, Jessica. Thanks for letting me on.
You too. And thanks you for coming on, because like you're the experimental person this time.
Yay!
This week's promo is for Lisa's Ladies of Leisure, which features her and a friend, and they talk about a word of the week and how it relates to their life, which is a pretty interesting concept, and I think it's very unique to the podcasting world. Enjoy!
Hello, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Sljana, and we are Ladies of Leisure.
Please join us every Friday as we drop our podcast, which is aimed at choosing a word of the week that we live by. And then we go through and talk about what we did for it
And our feelings.
and our delightful feelings.
We also have 3 pillars that we focus on in our podcast.
Be productive
Burn some butter off your buns.
and laugh out loud.
Yeah, so if those things sound very fun and interesting to you.
And if you are lady or lord of leisure and want to hear our leisurely tips and our word of the week, then join us.
Every Friday.
ladiesofleisure.net. Find us on Spotify or iTunes.
LOL.
Hi! So this is a little tag on at the end of the episode. I hadn't planned on adding it, but between recording this episode and now, I've gotten married.
What? To whom?
To you!
To me?
Yeah.
My
So-
God.
So frequent guests Finn and I have gotten married.
Mhm.
And it's been almost a week. We got married on the 7th. We're recording this on the 13th. So it's getting to be close to that week anniversary.
Yes.
Woohoo! So, and unlike American weddings, it was more of a courthouse wedding.
Mhm.
But it was a very stylish courthouse wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's like a little mansion where I live where we can kind of go get married for a little bit of extra money a week.
Yeah, to make that clear, it's not a mansion where she lives. It's a mansion in the city where we live.
Yeah, it's a part of the city hall owns it. And
Yes.
so they have weddings, you know, a couple times a month there on the weekends. And I happen to catch it right on time. We got married on day 87. Yeah, out of 90. So we barely made it in there for me to be able to stay. But surprise, surprise, I can.
Yes.
And he looks smashing in his midnight blue suit. Almost like a TARDIS blue, it looks like, if you look at it in the right light.
I didn't look as good as you in your white dress, but nobody does.
So the white dress was a sleeveless dress. I had flutter sleeves put on. And I had on 2 large shoes, so I couldn't wear them for the pictures because 2 large shoes. But I'm hoping on our first anniversary we can go get professional pictures made at some point and make them kind of like really pretty. I also got my hair chopped off by a good, 4 or 5 inches?
Did you say make the pictures real pretty? It's going to hinge on something? Are you going to be in them?
Now you see why I keep him, right? He's very good for the ego. But...
I'm just reminding you.
But we got married, and it was amazing, and his family was there, and for those that were not there, we were streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, by the way, so if you want to see the wedding, I'm actually going to put it on the Patreon, so you can actually see the full thing. We're going to upload it so we can see it, plus there's a message to the patrons about that as well, and in a separate video, because we're trying to make it a little bit more fun in Patreon, but also, I mean, the people that contributed helped make this happen, so...
After all, this is a romance podcast.
Exactly, and it's our happily ever after starting now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like the end of all those cool books that we keep reading about. Well, the ones we like, anyway. Mm-hmm. There were a few.
Not so much the ones that we dislike. Neither of us is a billionaire, for that matter.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Billionaires should not exist.
I don't really want to be Jeff Bezos, do you? Right? So we don't really want to be in that category of people. We're good being good people and not, stepping on toes left, right, and center to make it happen.
Toes, heads, throats.
Backs, spines.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes. So the wedding was very cool. It was about 15 minutes or so, I'd say. Somewhere around there, 15, 20.
More like 20, 25.
Okay, because I couldn't really tell from the beginning.
I think the stream was like 30 minutes.
Okay. So the reason I couldn't tell is I still haven't watched it. Just to give you a heads up, I can't listen and I can't watch myself. That's why he edits. I literally can't do it. I just get so much my whole personality and ego just goes to the floor because I just get so, critical of myself. So I haven't actually seen it, so I'm not sure. I listened to a little bit of it from the other room because that's how I roll.
I kept her company.
Yeah, because he's not real fond of it either. But we also don't have a lot of pictures, but like I said, on the Patreon stuff, we're going to put most of the pictures up there. Mm-hmm. If you were on Twitter, on the Damsels Podcast Twitter, you may have seen pictures here and there. Mm-hmm. I'll put a better picture of my ring on there, and I'll put a better picture of his ring, which doesn't fit.
It fits on one of her fingers.
Yeah, it doesn't fit on the right finger, on the proper finger, because his knuckles are bigger than his hands.
Yeah, I'm kind of an echidna that way.
Yeah, so we've kind of got to go either get a new one because I can get one just like the one I bought him because where I bought it they have other sizes, or we can just go try and have it fitted. Yeah, just take some of the inside out a little bit and make it less thicker.
Inside out without a Pixar budget.
Yeah, we have no Disney budget for this wedding. This wedding was actually fairly inexpensive, but my mother-in-law made an amazing cake.
Yes, it was good.
And my now husband helped make it. He helped decorate it.
Tiny bit.
He helped decorate it. That's what counts. And my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law and all and my mother-in-law, father-in-law, the whole in-law clan that came was amazing and very welcoming. And it was just a really good day. It felt good to have something together we've been looking forward to.
For a long time. 6.5
years, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost closer actually to 7 now. Because March, yeah, closer.
Almost 6 3/4?
Yeah, because it's almost as old as my nephew, who had a birthday on Monday. I didn't realize we were getting married near his birthday.
Sometimes things happen that way.
Oh, no, to explain. It's because my father, my stepfather and my mother got married 5 days after my little brother's birthday. Mm-hmm. So, fairly
things cluster.
Well, and apparently we got married on the day that my parents got married, and then they divorced, and then there's someone else in the family who got married on our wedding day and got divorced, but we're not.
They're not using it anymore. We can have it.
Exactly. We have double use. But if you would like to see any of that, you can definitely check out the Patreon account. I hope you guys enjoy that part. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add a little bit extra here, which he will talk about, I'm sure, because he watched me build it. I actually created a webpage.
Hell yeah.
It's damselspodcast.com. Yep. And it's got a list of all the episodes so you can listen to them on the website. It's got a list of all the places you can find us. It's got an about. It's got a contact information. It's got a list of the patrons.
And the list of all the features you had.
All the recommendations. The book one's probably not so much because there's been so many, but I've got to keep adding to it. Mm-hmm. But like all the podcasts I have talked about since the podcast started has been listed there in ABC order. With
Because
links,
that's how she rolls.
with links to either their website or whatever I could find to pull you in so you could listen to them and find access to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want to check that out, that would be great. I'm still working on making the design a little bit, and I'm going to add some more stuff, but there's a little bit more to the podcast now. It gives you a little bit more room.
Mm. And no website is ever done.
Yeah, especially not mine. I appreciate you guys listening, and I appreciate you wanting to be part of the story, because I know we got a lot of comments on Twitter, and that was amazing. I wasn't expecting it. I was just announcing it because sometimes a little happily ever after. Especially in the time of pandemics and political strife and everything in between. Sometimes it's good to have a little happy ending and a reminder that life isn't always shitty.
Yeah. Not everything in life is politics and pandemics and Cats the movie.
But you can have a cat, just not cats.
Yes. You can have multiple cats too. As long as they don't look like James Corden.
Or Judi Dench's hands. But anyway, we actually haven't seen the movie, so we can't riff on it too much.
True.
But
maybe we should.
I know. I just wanted to let you guys in on what was happening, and to give you the heads up, let you know about the new website. And next time I'll be covering Not the Girl You Marry by Andy J. Christopher, which I mentioned I think at the end of this episode, but I'm going to reiterate. I have to record the episode coming up. And it'll be with Courtney from the Cult of Domesticity.
Don't miss it.
Yeah. All right, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.